at 7:30.
In Moscow, Mikhail Gorbachev announces major cuts in Soviet nuclear weapons, a response to George Bush. In this country, angry taxpayers protest a new income tax. A governor gets the message. And this evening, as the Supreme Court goes back to work, we'll preview cases that could affect our lives.
This is NBC Nightly News, reported by Garrett Utley.
Good evening. And today it was Mikhail Gorbachev's turn to make this world a slightly safer place. Just 1 week after President Bush announced major cuts in American nuclear weapons, Gorbachev did the same. A total elimination of Soviet tactical short-range nuclear missiles and rockets and shells, and yes, there is more. Jim Masade in Moscow has the details. Good evening, Jim.
Good evening, Garrick. Well, rumors that Mikhail Gorbachev would respond in kind to President Bush's sweeping cuts in nuclear weapons proved to be true tonight. Not only did Gorbachev match the American proposals, he's called on the United States to make even further cuts. In a nationally televised statement on Soviet TV tonight, Gorbachev announced the liquidation of all tactical, that's short-range, nuclear weapons on land. All tactical nuclear weapons would also be pulled from ships and submarines. Many of these would be destroyed. All heavy bombers, the Soviet equivalent of the U.S. B-52s, would be taken off full alert. Responding to Bush's call to remove and store U.S. Tomahawk cruise missiles, Gorbachev threw down the gauntlet. He wants the United States to fully liquidate all tactical nuclear weapons in the U.S. Navy, where the United States has a high nuclear advantage over the Soviets. And Gorbachev did not miss the opportunity to once again pursue his own pet project.
I call on the United States to join the Soviet Union in a one-year moratorium on all nuclear testing.
A ban on nuclear testing grows from more than a desire for peace. Economically, Gorbachev has no choice. With overall production expected to plummet 20% this year, and inflation soaring at over 5% a week, the Soviets' only hedge against new, more expensive weapon systems would be a ban on U.S. testing as well. Gorbachev is also under great pressure internally to dispose of some of the 27,000 nuclear warheads stretched over a number of independence-minded republics. With ethnic violence erupting in Georgia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and elsewhere, there is growing fear of nuclear weapons falling into the wrong hands. Sweeping cuts will help. On the question of long-range strategic weapons, Gorbachev says the Soviets will immediately pull some strategic submarines back to base and will limit development of the Soviet mobile missile. Gorbachev called on the U.S. to cut back strategic weapons by 50%, above and beyond the START treaty reductions. One reason, Republic leaders like Russian President Boris Yeltsin and Kazakhstan President Nursultan Nazarbayev are asserting their own control over strategic nuclear weapons based on their soil.
Right now, it is the major concern of Gorbachev to preserve central control over nuclear weapons. He makes a clear signal to the republics that, yes, we can discuss these problems, I will consult with you, but I'm the guy to make the final decision.
If there was one surprise in Gorbachev's speech, it was the emphasis he placed on cooperation with the United States on strategic defense. Normally, the Soviets are against all talk of Star Wars, but Gorbachev tonight called for a common early warning system, sounding very similar to the U.S. position. Garrick?
Jim, in his announcement today, Gorbachev also called for a summit meeting with George Bush. Why and when?
Well, why simply, Garrick? Because Gorbachev needs a summit now to discuss those strategic weapons. The more strategic weapons he can cut, the fewer he has to worry about in the other republics, the less money he has to spend on making more. So I think there is going to be a summit, possibly as early as November, but I would think that by the end of the year with George Bush.
All right, Jim Masade in Moscow, thank you. And by the way, President Bush said late this afternoon that he too favors a summit, but he did not commit himself to any specific date for that meeting with Gorbachev. The president said that after he spoke with Mikhail Gorbachev today about the Soviet arms cut, and this evening at the White House, he said he liked what he heard.
I feel this is very good news for the whole world. I mean, they've come a long way, and I think we have too, as we rethink what is actually necessary in terms of nuclear weapons. So I think a lot of people around the world taking a vote of gratitude to the Soviet leadership for their approach here.
And other developments in the Soviet Union today. It took yet another formal step into the capitalist world. Mikhail Gorbachev signed an agreement with the International Monetary Fund giving the Soviet Union limited membership. That means the Soviets can get economic expertise and advice from the IMF, but not any loans. Gorbachev had asked for full membership, but he was told his country does not qualify for that full membership, at least not yet. Well, as we cover our world this day, we'll see next what happens to a governor when he imposes a state income tax for the first time, one guess. And we'll also report on the latest in Haiti, where diplomats are telling those who seized power that they have to give it up, but they have not.
Coming to you hot and fresh from Domino's Pizza, Domino's Pepperoni Pizza Feast with extra pepperoni and cheese. Now a medium's just $8.99 or two for $12.99.
Nobody knows like Domino's how you like pizza at home.
We bake pearls made of denture material in this blueberry pie to prove how powerfully Efferdent, America's leading denture cleanser, removes this tough stain, even in between. Efferdent, stronger than stains.
The first Saturday of October is usually a pleasant time in Connecticut, a time to watch the leaves changing colors. But today in Hartford, the state capital, it was not a time to look at the trees. No, the issue there was taxes, a new state income tax. What happened? Rick Davis shows us.
A summer-long drama reached a crescendo today as citizens' anger over a new state income tax, the first in 20 years, turned ugly at Connecticut's state capital. Governor Lowell Weicker, who vetoed 3 budgets proposed to the state legislature over a 6-month period before finally pushing through the income tax, tried to address the anti-tax rally. But thousands of protesters jeered and shouted obscenities. When the verbal abuse began to turn physical, Weicker's bodyguards hustled into safety inside the Capitol building. The 4.5% tax went into effect the 1st of October. Legislators tried to make it more palatable by cutting the state's highest in the nation sales tax from 8% to 6%. But the voters continue to demand the income tax be repealed, just as the last income tax was. Pointing out that no alternative budgets have been offered, Weicker said he understands the taxpayers' displeasure.
One of the rights that were guaranteed under our Constitution is the right to petition your government. It's a rather strange petition to say you suck, but that's their words, not mine.
Despite Weicker's insistence that the state does not have the money to provide state services without the income tax, legislative leaders say they'll circulate petitions next week, calling for a special session to vote on repeal. Rick Davis, NBC News.
And now to the economy. Uncertainty and, yes, unemployment. President Bush says he will veto the Democrat-sponsored bill extending jobless benefits beyond 6 months, but he concedes that some additional help is needed. Here are the facts. The government says almost 8.5 million Americans are jobless today, but almost 6.5 million part-time workers are not included in that figure, and neither are 1 million more described as too discouraged to be out even looking for work. Add it all up, and that's a total of just under 16 million Americans. Well, yesterday, the president said a slight decrease in the jobless rate shows the economy is, in his words, moving in the right direction. That's his quote. Is it? Jeff Madrick is here this evening to tell us about that. Jeff?
Good evening, Garrick. Well, not everyone agrees. The monthly employment data not only tell us how many are unemployed, they are the first good look at the overall strength of the economy. And for September, they in fact showed a very slow recovery, if a recovery at all.
To the president, a 0.1% fall in the unemployment rate was reason for optimism yesterday.
The drop in unemployment is one more sign that the economy is strengthening.
But others say the unemployment rate dropped only because a huge 500,000 workers had to take part-time work, which knocks them out of the unemployed count. In fact, by the most commonly watched numbers, relatively few new jobs were created.
The economy is in the doldrums. and without some type of jolt, or maybe perhaps without some type of redirection in domestic policies, it's not going to get out of the doldrums.
But if the president is right and a recovery is underway, even some politically conservative economists worry it will be too little too late. Economic growth over Bush's full 4 years in office will probably come in at a record slow pace for any modern presidency, says Lawrence Hunter of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
We've estimated that the first 4 years of the first term of the Bush administration may actually demonstrate the slowest rates of economic growth, are close to it, since the Great Depression.
Hunter finds that economic growth started to fall behind its long-term average in 1989. Even if the Bush administration's optimistic forecast of future growth is correct, it won't catch up. The more sluggish forecasts of most other economists, compiled by blue-chip indicators, shows the economy falling even further behind. Who suffers the most? Job seekers.
We would have expected about 12.5 million new jobs. What we are likely to get, even under the optimistic forecast, is something on the order of 7.5 million new jobs.
And a long period of slow growth hits the disadvantaged especially hard.
In 1990, the number of people in poverty jumped by 2 million, even though the unemployment rate was only at 5.5% in 1990. I shudder to think how many more people are in poverty today now that the unemployment rate is over 1 percentage point more than it was a year ago.
Some economists, including Hunter, say that economic growth was so slow before the recession and will probably continue to be that a more conventional, if steeper recession would actually have done less damage. The average family of four, he says, will now have $3,000 less income than would have been earned over a typical presidential term. Garrett?
So, Jeff, what you're saying here is hardly news to anyone. On average, the standard of American living is going down.
There's no question that's been true, I think, in the last 3 years of this very slow growth plus recession. It was true even a little bit before that. The real issue is if growth continues slow, which everybody is talking about, the standard of living may be frozen or just edge up a little bit, and we are not accustomed to that as a nation.
All right, perhaps not accustomed to it. Many economists have been saying this is precisely what we should be doing right now. Consumers buying less or bringing down their debt level in order to make this country more competitive in the international marketplace. Isn't there some painful truth to that?
Nothing quite frightens me as much as this attitude that's infested the economics profession, and I think the nation. There is a belief in the inevitability of slow growth, but there's very little understanding of the tragic consequences. Not only the poor, but the standard of living goes down. Partly it is true, but it is not inevitable. We can grow fast to cure inflation. We do not have to grow slow. We can build capacity, make more products.
Everybody's waiting for that. Jeff Madrick, thanks for being with us tonight. And we'll be back with more news in just 1 moment.
Does your washing machine like to dance? When it gets unbalanced, does it strut its stuff instead of cleaning yours? What you need is a strong, silent type, the Frigidaire Horizon 2000. Unlike some washers, it adjusts to unbalanced loads and keeps on running. Frigidaire, clean clothes without the song and dance.
And now get up to $75 cash back on select new appliances from Frigidaire.
Have you had your V8 today? Did you know that V8 juice has less than half the calories of that apple?
Wow!
Did you know that V8 has more vitamins A and C than that tossed salad?
Wow!
And did you know that V8 is 100% vegetable juice, so it has no fat, unlike that low-fat yogurt?
Wow!
So how do you feel now that you know these things?
Wow! I gotta have a V8.
V8 is a nutritious blend of 8 vegetable juices that taste terrific. Have you had your V8 today?
It feels to me always like someone's banging on my knuckles with a hammer. It's really uncomfortable.
Today, it isn't aspirin, it's Advil for minor arthritis pain.
Advil just really helps with the pain. It makes it go away. The Advil caused me no upset stomach.
Over 100 million people have tried Advil for many types of pain.
That means to me it must work, and it also means it must be safe, and those are two things that I'm interested in.
Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
On Focus this evening, the importance of the first Monday in October. That's the day on which the Supreme Court begins its term. And this Monday it faces several issues which could affect many Americans. For example, abortion rights, smokers' rights, And right off the bat, an important case involving school desegregation, busing. We want now to get a preview from Henry Champ, who's at the Supreme Court this evening in Washington. Henry?
Good evening, Garrick, and you're absolutely right. What this court is all about gets tested very early. The first case looking at school desegregation in Georgia. And the most consistent and important voice on race relations, Judge Thurgood Marshall, is gone.
The stakes are enormous. DeKalb County schools bordering Atlanta are desegregated and under court order to stay that way. But DeKalb's population has changed. Desegregation of schools led to white flight. Now half of DeKalb's black students attend all-black schools.
White families simply will not sit still for busing, so they move, or they put their children in private school, and then there are no white students left to integrate in the first place.
The school board wants court supervision ended. It argues it provides good education, that it has integration programs for those who want them, that court-ordered desegregation costs money needed elsewhere. But most black parents and students are suspicious that without court protection, white districts in the northern part of the county will get the better schools.
We're just not getting the same education as they are in the north. We're not getting the same treatment. We're not getting the same conditions as they are in the north. We're not getting the same teaching.
If the court sides with the school board, it could be the beginning of the end for court-ordered school integration. This summer in Wichita, local law officials couldn't keep an abortion clinic open.
That door is the focus. Close the gap.
Anti-abortionist campaigns have closed some clinics and stopped some doctors performing abortions. In Wichita, a federal judge eventually ordered federal marshals to stop the blockades, saying they were illegal. The Supreme Court will decide whether judges have that power.
It's about access to abortion. And if there are not avenues for protecting the kind of access that women need to abortion services, then Roe v. Wade loses a lot of its meaning.
This case will further signal, we hope, that abortion is not a fundamental constitutional right. Therefore, women seeking abortion could not possibly be a protected class.
And can smokers sue for deadly illnesses they blame on tobacco companies? In 1984, Rose Cipollone died after years of smoking, and her husband was awarded $400,000 by the lower courts despite health warnings on packages.
How can a person be responsible when you start smoking at 16? You're a child.
If cigarette companies lose this case before the Supreme Court, it would open the dam for billions of dollars of similar suits.
And all of these cases, Garrick, get heard in the very first month.
Well, Henry, the court is one man short, as we all know, and assuming that Clarence Thomas is confirmed by the Senate, will he take part in the ruling, this early ruling, in the important school desegregation case?
No, he will not. He would not, even by the most optimistic setting, ever get to hear that case, nor would he hear the one on abortion. The best and first opportunity for him to participate will be on the smoking case.
Well, will Thomas's arrival on the court change its balance now, or has that already been settled as a matter of fact?
No, I think most experts believe that the conservative bent of this court is already established, and that Thomas only adds to that, and adds to it in a very big way, because he replaces Thurgood Marshall, who must have been number one or number two, the most liberal voice on the court.
Henry Champ in Washington, thank you once again. The court term begins this Monday, and we'll be back with more news in just a moment.
Recently, DuPont announced that its energy unit Conoco would pioneer the use of new double-hulled oil tankers in order to safeguard the environment. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. DuPont, better things for better living.
Dina DeLuca, are you waiting longer for overseas calls to connect? Latino Chicago Theater Company, are you saving less than you'd hoped on international calls since you left AT&T? We want you back. AT&T Pro Watts, competitive prices on international calls, plus our new favorite nation 10% discount. Switch now and get 1 month of long distance free. We want you back. Call 1-800-222-0900.
The reinvention of the Ford Escort added a new level of design and performance to small cars. And now, we've added a new, more sophisticated Ford Escort. Introducing the new four-door Ford Escort LX sedan, a car designed to offer exceptional value and quality, and even the power of the GT, but with a style all its own. Have you wanted a style all your own? Have you driven a Ford lately?
Do you have a cold?
Yes, I do have a cold.
Here's 2 cold medicines. This relieves these 3 symptoms, this 9. Choose one.
I would use this one.
Why?
That's my cold. The fever, the headaches, the sinus congestion.
Here's what you chose.
I'm totally amazed.
Would you try Dristan Cold?
Absolutely.
How do you feel?
I feel amazingly good.
Dristan Cold relieves 9 tough cold symptoms. Dristan Cold, part of the Dristan family of products. Dristan, the face of relief today.
In Indonesia today, a military transport plane returning troops from an Armed Forces Day celebration in Jakarta crashed shortly after taking off, killing at least 132 people. Witnesses said smoke was trailing from the plane as it smashed into a Jakarta suburb, and then it exploded. In Haiti today, the leader of the military coup hinted for the first time that ousted President Jean-Bertrand Aristide may be allowed to return to that country. Raoul Cedras indicated the president's return might be negotiable, but he offered no details. This came as Cedras met for a second time with the representatives of the Organization of American States. In Washington, Jamie Gangel is following the developments. Jamie?
Garrick, it is day 6 of this coup, and there still does not seem to be either a working government in Haiti or any resolution near in this crisis. But the Organization of American States is continuing its efforts. The OAS team arrived back in Haiti this morning for more meetings with community leaders, the Haitian parliament, and ousted government leaders who have been in hiding. There was no outward sign of progress, but earlier in the day, Argentina's foreign minister said they were optimistic and indicated that coup leader General Raoul Cedras appeared to be trying to work out a compromise.
No, I think he's an intelligent man that has tremendous problems, and I think that he's now aware of the seriousness of what has been done.
Cedras told reporters that there will have to be a national consensus before President Aristide can return, and said he could not guarantee his safety. Traditionally, the OAS has never put any teeth into its resolutions, but the delegation repeated that Haiti will face sanctions and economic isolation if democracy is not restored. The U.S. has already frozen all Haitian assets, and the OAS is threatening a complete economic boycott, which would devastate an economy that is already the poorest in the hemisphere.
The big step in terms of sanctions is to prevent oil from coming into the country. This means 1 tanker per month. And when the tanker stops, the lights go out.
Meanwhile, the streets of Haiti seemed calmer today, but most people stayed home and businesses closed for fear of more violence. Since the coup Monday, reports of wounded and killed have varied widely, from about 100 to 1,000. Several members of the OAS, Argentina and Venezuela, have talked about the possibility of using force, Garrick, but President Bush has made it clear that he does not want that unless American lives are at stake. There are 500 Marines on alert tonight in Guantanamo, just in case. Garrick?
Jamie, well, what the president is saying here is a familiar phrase, in effect, quote, give sanctions a chance. Is the administration confident that they will work in Haiti?
I think that they certainly think they have a very good chance, because Haiti is already in such desperate economic straits that a boycott would probably have a severe impact almost immediately. As the ambassador said in the piece, they miss 1 tanker of oil and the lights go out.
All right, Jamie Gangel in Washington, thank you very much. And we'll be back with more news in just a moment.
It's 6 o'clock, you're coming home for supper tonight. You work all day, you work up an appetite.
Hey, Mom, what's for dinner?
I wonder what Benny is cooking up for dinner tonight.
How about stir-fried chicken and broccoli in a tangy oriental sauce with minute rice? Because minute rice makes all your recipes taste great. Now that's something to come home to.
Just look a minute, it's cooking up for dinner tonight.
Good game, good friends. And now that I use Fix-It-In, I can tell the ref what I really think.
Fix-It-In and forget it.
Are you nuts?
Before I switched to Fix-It-In, Jones Peanut Crunchies only looked delicious.
Fix-It-In and forget it. Fix-It-In is the strongest holding denture adhesive you can get. It even stands up to the hottest liquids.
With my old adhesive, I'd never make a presentation and drink hot coffee at the same time.
Well, the strongest hold you can get. Fix-it and forget it.
I want to ask you about something.
Okay. Okay.
I'm crazy about you.
Well, I'm crazy about you, too. That's it? What? What? Come on, what?
When you get gas pain, you've got a choice. Your antacid or Gas X, the tablet made for gas pain. It's extra strength, 100% simethicone to get rid of gas faster than your antacid. Fight gas right with Gas X.
Baseball's Major League playoff picture was completed today as the Atlanta Braves clinched the National League West title. The Braves finished last in the division last year. They clinched the title by beating the Houston Astros 5-2. The Braves will now face the Pittsburgh Pirates for the National League pennant. Happy people there. Well, finally this evening, another subject. Americans getting angry at their government, our government. Today, a moment ago, we saw taxpayers in Connecticut irate because they will have to pay a new state income tax. This past week, we heard the public outcry and outrage over members of Congress, the House of Representatives, bouncing checks, more than 8,000 bad checks in 1 year period. It's not surprising that this reaction is directed at something people across the country can relate to personally. Who wants deadbeats in Congress? But the anger is only a symptom of the real problem there, the alienation that so many Americans clearly feel towards the government. Yes, the anger might accomplish more if it were directed at the real sins in Congress, the influence of special interest groups there, in a word, money, campaign contributions, which lead to the fact that House members have the closest thing to total job security in this country. 96% of the incumbents, 96% of them were reelected last year. But something good could come out of all of this. After all, the real outcry over waste in defense spending came only when we learned about $600 toilet seats and overpriced hammers in planes. Perhaps the bouncing checks will serve the same purpose. For years, there have been calls for reforms in Congress, and its members have taken some steps. But when the members of the House meet again next week, it will be most business as usual. They will still be able to have their parking tickets in Washington, D.C. fixed legally, and their tax-subsidized congressional haircuts will still cost $5. Only now people will start asking who is really getting clipped. And that is our look at our world this day. Join us tomorrow morning for Sunday Today, as well as Meet the Press. Our guest will be Budget Director Richard Darman. I'm Garrett Utley. Good night for all of us here at NBC News.
Sophia's new nurse is an old friend.
I don't think that she'll remember me.
All new Golden Girls. Then the kids just love Mama Torkelson's new boyfriend.
You're right.
And her husband's away, but Laverne wants to play.
Okay, if I give you a call.
All new Empty Nest. Plus a surprise wedding on an all-new Nurses on NBC tonight.
It's being hailed as the class act of the season, considered NBC's gift to the quality viewer. I'll Fly Away previews Monday, premieres Tuesday on NBC.
If you watched Kathy Smith's News 8 investigation on foster care, you saw more than just a story.